Okay, I believe we're live now. This is the 5th episode, and I'm going to let Ken start this one off. He's had quite an interesting time. He was on the Kill stream last Monday, I believe, or this past Monday, and you had something else you wanted to talk about. What was it, Ken?
Well, for one, this is Indie Rock Dinosaur, and I was thinking back to my days in private Jewish school and how my science teacher was from somewhere about down south. So she used to teach us about dinosaurs. So maybe you should call this Indie Rock Dinosaur. Just a thought.
I don't like that pronunciation.
Fine. That's just a distinct memory I have from private Jewish school. Dinosaurs. So anyhow, tonight we have a man I consider the premier researcher of Aleister Crowley, amongst many, many other things. When I listen to William Ramsey's shows, I just shake my head like, how does he know so much about so much? Because I'm the kind of guy that specialize in certain little bits and pieces of stuff, and I try to know what I'm talking about within little subjects here and there. But William, I've been really impressed by the shows you continue churning out, as well as the books. So we're going to be discussing Hollywood influences, occult symbolism, how it affects us, how to deal with it, really, how to just kind of trudge through what I've been known to term poop culture, right? Just streaming together pop culture, poop, and occult. And in that regard, recently I've been watching a new show called Raised by Wolves, and I've been writing reviews of it episode by episode. So I thought to mention a few things about it, because I found it very interesting on various levels. The show is a sci-fi show. It's set in the future where the Earth has been destroyed due to a battle between two opposing forces, which are on the one hand atheists and on the other hand Mithraists. Okay, you guys recognize the term Mithraism?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so it's a very obscure thing, right? I mean, it's very rare that anybody ever brings up Mithraism. And most people nowadays have probably heard about it from watching that fake-umentary Zeitgeist, right? Where they claimed that Jesus is a pagan copycat, partly based on the character of Mithras, who had basically a cult that sprang up in 1st to 4th centuries AD, right? And they claimed, well, Mithras had 12 disciples. He was born of a virgin. He was resurrected, this and that and the other. And Jesus was just modeled after that. But when serious research got to work, it's basically the other way around. First of all, almost none of the things that were supposed to correlate. For example, Mithras was supposedly born out of a rock. Now, okay, I guess you could claim that a rock is a virgin, but, doesn't really quite have the same connotation. And so it's fascinating that this show foresees a future where the two main forces, the influences, the worldviews, are atheism and a counterfeit of Christianity. It's really, really interesting. And maybe not surprising that the production company behind it is Ridley Scott, who was behind Alien and many other movies. He actually directed the first 2 episodes, and he himself is an atheist. So it's kind of really interesting to see how they're handling these worldviews. And sometimes it's pretty evident to me that they're using Mithraism really just as a way to bash Christianity in disguise. The show is also peppered, as it were, with a lot of symbolism. For example, there's tons of pentagrams, pentacles and pentagons all over the place, including what they call the pentagonal prophecy. And here we're showing an image where the artificial intelligence, the android called Lamia, and also known as Mother, who serves a function of being a necromancer, by the way, which basically means she can transform into a weapon of mass destruction. She's literally murdered thousands of people. And there she is standing in a Mithra version of a zodiac. And I'm starting to see her as a symbol or a stand-in or an archetype for the Gnostic Sophia. For instance, right there in the middle of that Mithra zodiac, she ends up making love to her creator, the one who programmed her. Actually, that's one of the tricky parts, is she calls him the creator, but he's actually a human atheist who found her and reprogrammed her. So it's one of those tricky things. It's kind of like you can't call him a creator. He didn't create. He just reprogrammed. But anyhow, she makes love to him right there in the center of that. So you could see the masculine and feminine, the chemical wedding right there. Fortunately, the show has no nudity, so it's comfortable to watch it. Unlike so very many other shows today that are just unwatchable. If you have any decency left. And so I'll show the Mason image.
Okay.
This is one that I caught on the show. It's kind of interesting to see how they're making one of the atheist characters developing an interest in Mithraism, and then they're showing a Mithra's child developing an interest in atheism. It's kind of interesting as far as character development and how they're kind of dealing with issues of worldviews and theology, and also high tech, right? Because you have androids running around doing stuff that can be programmed and reprogrammed. Okay, so there, if you notice the hand, there you see the back of the hand. That's Mithraist woman clergy member, and on her hand she has a symbol tattooed of a Freemasonic square and compass. By the way, I'm drinking out of my little mason jar. So, it's kind of like people like us. We watch this stuff and catch a lot of things. I thought to just point out that if you look at the traditional square and compass, we're told by Masons that they'll originally be told that you'll find within that square and compass refers to geometry, right? But as we know about Masons, the Blue Lodge, which is the first 3 levels, are purposefully deceived by the Masons above them, so that they end up finding out that G actually refers to generative, generation, as in birth, as in the sexual act that produces life, right? So pull up the rune one now, because I realized that I definitely believe the G stands for. Looked at the rune for fertility, and it's basically the square and compass is basically just a horizontal version of this rune for fertility. So the show is new and it's still ongoing. Writing about it, you see that it's put it horizontally, and then it's basically the square and compass. I'm sure that's where they got it, and it means fertility, and the Masons use it to mean generative, or producing life. So anyhow, that's one of the things we're dealing with nowadays is these. I was going to say TV show, but I guess that would date me, right? I'm supposed to say like a Wi-Fi streaming show, right? To get up to date.
You can't call it a TV anymore because most people are watching these on their cell phones.
Yeah.
So
and even like, TVs are just large nowadays anyway. So this is one of the things we're dealing with, is we're being confronted by shows and movies and even music videos that are just sort of jam-packed with symbolism And even those that don't contain symbolism that to me is just as obvious as pentagrams and square and compasses and much more, they're still based on a worldview. And it's the worldview that's behind what you're seeing on your screen. And we're not a culture that sits around campfires hearing great tales of ethics and adventure and myth and legend, right? We sit around the glowing lights of our TV sets and computers and phones, and that's where we get our philosophy, our worldview, our ethics, and our heroes, right? I mean, look at the proliferation of superhero movies. They're basically neo-high-tech gods.
Titans, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're considering tonight is just kind of how do we deal with that on various levels? How do we deal with it intellectually, societally, spiritually? And one thing I noticed, for instance, today, I was watching a movie and all of a sudden somebody started making a comment that was relatively not related to the plot. And I thought, okay, well, that's the sort of thing. That's one way you can identify when something's propaganda. When a character suddenly says something that seems like it could have been deleted because it has no real relevance. That's usually when you can tell that's something that was inserted to make a point, right? And so if you're not vigilant about that stuff, you'll tend to just kind of take it in almost subconsciously and not notice it, not wrestle with it, especially if you're the kind of person who says, it's just a movie, it's just a show, it's just. Sure, somebody put millions of dollars behind developing it and having it out there, but it's meaningless. Right. Okay. So with that, either Zach or William, just take it from there and off we go.
Yeah, William, I guess, will be the one to take it because I brought his book up here, but he is a person who's investigated this type of thing from every angle, and we've talked about this with him on previous streams, Ken being on William's podcast, and either one or two times William jumped in my the other show I do, The Quiet Place, and one topic that has always brought up a lot of debate, especially within The Quiet Place, not even when William's not there, it's a thing that I've had to talk about quite a bit, is what's the extent of the symbolism and the hidden occult things? Like, what do they actually do to people aside from societal programming? So that's what pretty much the main topic we wanted William to get into today.
Yeah, I would say that at least, in the latter part of the 20th century to the present day, I would say that there's a lot of programming and they're revealing their hands through a variety of different directors and films. And I think that some of there's a wink and a nod to people in the know. And it probably would be surprising to a lot of people that they'd been exposed to occult symbols and concepts and not really grasp the totality. So, I mean, I can cite so many films that are part of our cultural parlance that have been ingested into the kind of psychosphere. So I think it's very important, especially with the kind of potency and prevalence of film, how significant it is as a medium, more so than books. Maybe podcast is similar, but it's just not as visual. But I think it's very profound influence. And I think some of the films that you've watched, maybe like Fight Club, which I did in this film right here, called Hollywood, it's shocking how much symbolism is in there. Smiley faces that I've covered in detail, numerology, all kinds of hand signals, occult concepts, even Tyler Durden himself is a figure, like a magical figure, much like Harry Potter, and that's why his name is a 5 and a 6. And so I think people are really being exposed to it, and the insiders know what they're being exposed to, where people who are not initiated or haven't had that interest in the occult or secret societies just aren't aware of.
Yeah, the one thing that I think is true is you can kind of turn it off. Like if you're familiar with what's going on, you can have that layer be in the back of your mind, but still realize that it's a story and that it doesn't affect you. But you look at just the progression from when Hollywood started to where we are as a society now, and the impact that, Hollywood's had has obviously been detrimental. As the U.S., multiple cities are just erupting in flames, and the media can basically press a button and everyone will go riot and whatnot. Right. Like we've gotten there. Plus, other, societal impacts that, have been pushed through the media. Like people will pretty much be talking in regular conversation and say things that people who, if they weren't exposed to that media, they wouldn't have those talking points. And lo and behold, those talking points didn't exist before Hollywood. And, now it's like it's attacking society from every angle, from really weird types of feminism to a lot of kind of, I guess you would say, liberation philosophy, where everyone wants to be liberated. And that shows up in films quite a bit. So there's obviously a societal programming aspect that does work. Is there anything else that movies do? Like, the one thing I get thrown my way a lot when I talk about this is that we bring it up and we're acting like you can watch a movie and a demon is going to like jump out of the movie and possess you or something. I don't necessarily believe that, but in certain instances that seems to be similar to the case just on the programming level alone. Like, is it just programming or is it something else?
Well, one interesting thing is you actually see that depicted in many movies, such as In the Mouth of Madness or The Blob, even where the monster, the creature, literally out through the cinema screen at the audience and wreaked havoc, or the TV screen or whatever they're watching. So they're definitely trying to tell us something about the impact that supposed fiction is going to have on the real world.
Yeah, it reminds me of Dario Argento, if y'all are familiar with his old Italian horror movies. But one of the reasons he filmed Suspiria, I think that's what it was, in the town that he did in, was because there were, for some reason, a large number of practicing Satanists in the town. And for whatever reason, that made him want to film the movie there. Then another movie he has, it was either Demons or Night of the Demons. I get a lot of these. The Italian ones have weird re-releases where things change. But it's, literally about what you just described, demons wreaking havoc in a movie theater. So he's one, where that same thing plays out. And, a topic I have dug into, and maybe it's because of my Lutheranism, but there seems to be a dichotomy to how Catholics view the demon thing and how everyone else does. Whereas Catholics will have very elaborate, long exorcisms with all kinds of rituals and rites or whatnot. Whereas the rest of Christianity pretty much holds that just Jesus's name alone is kind of like authority over the demons. And so I guess I'm somewhat preconditioned to think that some people blow the demon thing a little bit out of the water, but it's like they obviously want to impart that message to us.
Yeah, I think William was imparting the message that he has a familiar.
Well, my cat just knows when I'm stuck in a chair, and he puts his head on he is expecting to be petted. So then he walks away, and then he bounces and barges into me again. So it's been a repeated problem in interviews. He has like a definitely 7 cents or something. But don't you think that? You want to talk about? You can talk about the book that The Exorcist was based on. It was Possessed. It was actually a true story and involved Catholic priest and a kid who was literally like playing with a Ouija board. Mm-hmm. And I'd actually I think my mom's friend knew the guy who was the actual Jesuit priest who did the exorcism on the kid. So
Whoa,
that was based upon it. Yeah. So look up Possessed, and that was the book that Blatty based The Exorcist on. It's pretty interesting. So some of these things come out of like true tales. That's, all of these different Jesuit priests attested to this weird phenomenon with this kid. And what the kid was doing was using the Ouija board to try to find money that had been lost. So he was asking, like, his aunt had passed away or something. So he was trying to supposedly contact her and find out where she left her money. But so I do think that there's definitely a social engineering problem, kind of like a Fabian long-term social change mechanism that went through Hollywood for sure and got darker and darker, and certain dark elements all the way. Even though you can talk about Asia Argento's daughter she was one of the first Weinstein accusers, and Anthony Bourdain's suspicious death, very suspicious death. But I do think that there was leading up. I think the occult Hollywood element is definitely that way, kind of like a progressive, even all the way to Cuties, which is a shocker that's even on the number one streaming service. I mean, it's illegal. I'm surprised that those people aren't being arrested, but I think it's all led up to things like that. And I think, like, if you look at one of the early guys in film, if you look at Kenneth Anger, he basically said he was creating a magic spell through his films. And I think a lot of these other directors, if you really talk to them, they know that they're doing something very powerful to a human mind that is in in a captive state. So I think that's the nature of the media as well, not just about the long-term agendas.
Yeah, some of the kind of definitions that people will throw out there for spells and whatnot, like the one I've seen the most is that what they're doing is setting up kind of like a linguistic paradox to get people thinking in kind of like a wrong, obviously occultic, just satanic or gnostic way, when they don't know it. Like, it's still at that programming level, but they're kind of tricked into a mindset. Like, for instance, and Ken knows all about this.
Yeah, 2001 is a great example. 2001: A Space Odyssey, I think, is a perfect example of Gnosticism and evolution, but definitely programming people with that kind of worldview.
Yeah, and I was going to say it also because Ken has written quite a bit about that novel and resulting franchise that, I had never understood that there was this, very concrete Gnostic sort of, I don't really know what you would call it, but just undercurrent to that story. Can you talk about that a little, Ken?
I'll force myself to talk a little because there's so much in that novel that it's almost overwhelming to think about it. Number of esoteric elements. There's numerology, and I don't mean numerology because I think there's numerology in there. There's numerology because the book itself puts thinking in terms of numerology into the mouth of the character it, right? And there's definitely Gnosticism, no question about it. There's the concept of the creature it, who incidentally is essentially a styled alien who fell to earth, right? As Jesus watched Satan fall to earth as lightning. It particularly enjoyed what it found here on earth, which was imagination. And so it could manifest as whatever scared you the most. And this would cause biological reactions in you so that your blood would taste better to it. Okay, so now you're basically looking at a form of the concept of adrenochrome. It's very clear that that's what it seeks, is to frighten its prey so that it'll have so that the fear will release certain biochemicals, and it likes the taste of those better. And so, yeah, it's saturated in all kinds of mysticism, symbolism. And also, Stephen King talks about how he wrote it during a period in his life where he was basically getting so high on cocaine and drunk that he does not even remember writing a lot of it.
Yeah, he may have had a little DMT in his system as well.
And, it speaks to being open to influences, right? Demonic influences. You're out of your mind. You're pounding out this stuff to the point where when he's asked if he might ever do some kind of sequel to it, he says no, because that character is too scary even for me. And I mean, imagine what that must be like to complete a novel and then have to read it just to find out what's in there. Now, I will grant you, there's some of my books I would like to read because just the level of detail you get into when you're writing nonfiction that's research-based, for me, afterwards, I can't retain all of those details. I can retain the big picture stuff, but not all the details. But to have to read it just to see what's in there and to say, wow, I don't remember writing that. I mean, it's something else. Yeah, it's really something else.
So I guess going back to like the main gist of what I wanted to talk about, the concept of a spell or something working, because I mean, obviously the people who are creating these things are like adamantly anti-Christian. Are they able to actually do anything that harms someone at like the type of level you would think of, like, in a cartoon with a wizard casting a spell and then someone turns into a frog or something? Like, obviously it's not that visual or blatant, but is there something other than what I said before, this kind of philosophical, linguistic kind of like mental cage that they're putting around you, but is still ultimately mental? Like, is there something else at play? Or have you looked into any of?
I would say absolutely there would be. I think that if you look at how much culture has been created from individual movies or anything, I think they know that they're creating it. I mean, if you look at Star Wars or something like that, the merchandise and the marketing of all those figurines and toys was an essential part. And so even me as a boy is taking part in this larger story, acting through these people. So I think they know the potency of some of these people. And this book that always pops up with all these guys that have influenced them is Hero with 1,000 Faces. And so you see these archetypes and things. And I think some aren't as pernicious as others, but if you want to get into the occult aspect, I think, some of these directors or some of these people are definitely trying to romanticize occultism or left-hand pathism in general, which so many new shows about young witches, girls, and stuff like that. So I think that definitely the spell element is definitely, I think, important. And I just read a book by Jason Horsley who likens the movie theater to the sleep room of MK Ultra, where you literally have somebody and you can pump in audio, sight at the same time, in a vulnerable state. So I think there's definitely.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Sorry.
Interesting you say that, because in that book right there, the book about it, I talked about the allegory of the cave by Plato, and how a movie theater is basically the characters in the allegory of the cave, all looking at images, thinking it's somewhat akin to real life, right?
Right.
And so the thing is that I would look at it as a sort of art of war phenomena, where what's happening is coming at us from multiple directions, right? So you can start in a very mundane level and talk about how if any of us were to make movies like William makes documentaries, of course there's a real life view behind it, even if what you're producing in the end is called fiction. And so there's a psychological impact, right? There's a philosophical impact. There could be a theological impact. And then there could be mystical impacts. I'm slowly doing research for my next book, which is going to be about alien and UFO themes in movies. And I'm reading about Richard Stanley, who directed The Color from Space. based on the H.P. Lovecraft movie, and he's talking about how before and throughout the filming of that movie, they were performing rituals. And actually, you see in the beginning of the movie is a ritual. It's literally a witch doing rituals. But he was saying that they were doing that for real during the filming of the movie. No surprise, Nicolas Cage was involved because he's all about that neo-shamanic form of acting, where what he said is and acting is lying, right? He doesn't want to lie anymore, so it's a styled form of possession, which I know, William, you know very much. Aleister Crowley talked about that one of the best ways to get possessed is to be an actor.
I've never heard that one before, but I know for sure, just being involved with horror fiction communities, the people who are hardcore Lovecraft freaks, they don't just look at his fiction as fiction. They actually think he is on to like philosophical and theological truths. Not that they believe he was writing about actual entities per se, but they believed straight up that he was right in the concept of, a gnostic chaos deity. So they might not believe in Cthulhu, and they'll say that that's just fiction, which is the fiction that they based literally their worldview on. But they will say they believe in basically chaos as a somewhat sentient and, of course, exactly relating to the Gnostic false version of God concept. So it's funny how even ardent atheists can be influenced by the stories they read.
Because all that stuff is ultimately nihilistic.
That's a good point.
It's confronting something that is other and so overwhelmingly powerful that in the face of it, a mere human is literally nothing. And so if you're a nihilist, then you're facing death, for instance. And there you go. That's the end of it. So you can caricaturize death in any way you want, like the creatures from out of Lovecraft, or call them aliens, call it whatever you want. There's this overwhelming force that's against you, and there's literally nothing you can do about it, but maybe attempt to survive another day or two.
Right.
Eventually,
it's going to
hit
right?
you, right?
Right. If you don't go insane, so there's always that threat of like trauma, psychological madness. Yeah.
So, for instance, I've talked quite a few times about the comedy show Seinfeld, right, which has always been said to be a show about nothing. And then one day I thought to myself, well, what does that even mean? Because many shows like that are about nothing, especially sitcoms. So then I realized, well, they're telling us it's about nothing, nihilism. That's what it means. It means nothing. And so what is the show about? It's a bunch of characters that don't really believe in anything transcendental. So what do? Well, they busy their days in getting involved in a whole bunch of drama that's really meaningless, but it gives their life momentary meaning. And that's what I've said about atheism many times, is that it gives one the consoling delusion of subjective meaning in an objectively meaningless existence, right? So that's what it's about. That's why it's basically about jumping from one relationship to the other and getting involved in bickering about the, as one of the characters, Elaine put it, the excruciating minutia of every single daily event. Those things give you this temporary meaning. Even with what we see going on in culture so much with the 24-hour news cycle and the need to have us constantly involved in dramas and traumas and tragedies, and look what happened, and look what so and so said, and get involved and talk about this, and you have to wrap your life around this cycle of constant tension and anxiety and worry and stress, because at least it gives you something to go on, right? I mean, I've known people like this. I call them drama addicts. If there's no problems going on, they will manufacture one. just to have something to busy themselves with.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
For the
all
day.
because they're getting away from that meta narrative. They think they have to have a bunch of short-term meanings, but the fact that there's, they're not placing their life, or they're directly taking themselves out of the true meta narrative that would, be constant, as in God created everything, for a good purpose, and taking place in that purpose is the only thing that makes what you do mean anything. And, once they take themselves out of that willingly, they literally just go crazy. And like, as you said, they have to have a bunch of short-term, admittedly sort of physical sensations, because, they're just getting dopamine or whatever from the drama. And it's really sad to watch it, but it's really annoying when they try to turn that into a lifestyle, or into like, a theological system that always centers around some kind of devil worship, although they won't say that. They'll always frame it in kind of like a, they'll put it in like a gnostic frame that makes it more intelligent seeming, to where they just believe in one type of divinity, et cetera, et cetera. But it's always funny how it really is just that kind of cheesy horror movie devil worship thing, no matter what dress they try to put on it.
Interesting.
There's also concepts in scholarly literature of something that's known as normative fiction. So the point there is that something is attempting to be normalized, right, through fiction. So that fiction is a vehicle whereby to seek to create societal change. That's a very well-known category of writing. Whether you're being influenced by the CIA or you're just taking it upon yourself, you're writing fiction or producing fictional movies that are meant to make something normal. And I mean, how many examples do we see of that today, right? I'm tempted to mention one, but who knows when our video will get blocked for mentioning certain things. But then tied to that, I think, is another concept, which is predictive programming. So here you're letting people know something that's literally occult, as in hidden, and you know about it, and you and your uppity up cohorts know about it, and so you're releasing that, and people say it's just a movie, and the next thing you know, it's, well, here it is in real life. How many things are we seeing today that go back even 1 year, much less 5 or 10, and people would have said, there's no way that'll ever happen. You're insane for even thinking about it. And today it's like, there it is in the headlines. It's happening right here and now. So predictive programming would be more like, some people call it telegraphing punches, right? Like, here's what's coming. Here's what's coming. Now, whether they're telling us for good or ill, whether they're warning us, whether they're just shoving it in our faces, or whether there's some kind of occult thing about the revelation of the method where they're letting you know openly, here's what we're doing. Yeah, here's what's going on.
Right, or these are the steps that are going to happen in the future. We want them to be. So there's so much stuff like that in films, whether normalizing UFO relationships, or because I think that's where they want to head. So I think that's really it's an incredibly powerful medium, filmmaker. So, and the other thing, you can talk about the CIA's influence in Hollywood, how many themes they want to get across. And like one of the perfect examples is the timing of the film Pearl Harbor that gets released just as 9/11 happens, right? I think the release date was sometime in 2001. And it's just like perfect timing. That was sponsored by the CIA, as far as I know.
One reason I laughed when William mentioned Fight Club and the smiley face symbolism in there. I forgot to mention in the movie It and the novel, there is a smiley face.
That's right.
And, this is one of the things about William is I'm sitting there minding my business, living my life, and all of a sudden he turns me on to the idea that there's an occult meaning to the smiley face. And now, years later, how many screenshots have I sent you?
Hundreds. It's over 100. It's
every time, yeah.
Movies, yeah.
Now, every time I watch a movie, I'm like, oh, okay, there's another one. In fact, I found one yesterday. I was watching The New Mutants. And so I'm going to be sending you some more. So, you got to watch out when you're dealing with William, because he'll turn you on to stuff that'll take over your life.
Yeah, well, that's a perfect example of the occultism, is that they're signaling to people with the insider knowledge and the other people don't. I mean, the smiley face is in Fight Club. It's in Natural Born Killers. It's all over the place, man. It's incredible.
Yeah, I've noticed some crazy stuff, and this is kind of embarrassing, but I've always been a gigantic Scooby Doo fan, and so I was watching the new Scooby Doo Mystery Inc., like all of it, and in an episode before the election, they're at this swamp town, and they randomly say, I forgot where the number came from, but the villains in this town are all like alligator people from the swamp or something. And they say number 45 is going to drain the swamp. And this is like way before all of that, rhetoric started. And it just stuck out to me so far or so hard. And there are other ones like that show is like kind of like filled with it. Even with Zachariah Sitchin, his name gets brought up a lot. And there's a whole ancient aliens aspect to this Scooby-Doo show. It's weird watching stuff like that play out even in a kid's show.
They wouldn't have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddlesome kids.
There you go.
Meddling kids.
Meddling kids.
So speaking
man, so we're definitely like drowning in all this stuff. It's just on so many different levels, what your kids are being exposed to, what you've been exposed to, what shaped the culture.
Yeah, and I think honestly the saddest part of it all is that the more secularized we become, the more of that really is where people look to get their spiritual meaning.
Yes.
Oddly, I mean, I don't get why they would, but they do. They will be looking to, if someone's looking to Avengers and other type of Marvel things to get morals about their life, it's like they're already so gone. But yet that is such, I mean, it's almost become a meme. People getting spiritual insight from the Avengers and specifically Star Wars, which, you all have talked about a lot. And more than anything, it's very depressing. It's like church culture in America has just completely died. Everyone has the same kind of media thing to go along with. And I've not looked at the statistics. I mean, church attendance overall is pretty negligible among people my age and younger. But they've all, throughout their whole life, been sat in front of a TV and, pumped full of this stuff. And it's kind of funny because it seems like all of it really started in the 60s with the kind of revolutionary mindset where, the academy actually paid attention to the student protesters. And now we live in like a kind of like a protesting culture. It's like there's always some sort of protest or riot going on.
Right.
Do you think there's anything special about the ones we've been seeing recently? Or do you think they're just like little short-term blips that, they mean stuff, but will go away after the election? Or like you think any of it's actually building up to something? What do you think?
I don't know. If you look at the times of revolutions or civil wars and things that lead up to them, this is like something where somebody's just throwing matches on a potential powder keg. So it's just going to take one thing, and then I don't see it stopping, because I do believe that there's significant people who want these protests to happen in these different cities, and they're facilitating it. So I don't see it going away, and I don't see it going away after the election. So
let me take a step back, just one step, to read you a well-known poem that some anonymous person put out there about this stuff. Here it reads thusly: "You say they're only characters. You say they're not real. But where were you when I needed to grow? Where were you when I needed to believe? Where were you when I was dying? Who saved my life? Because it wasn't you. They're more than fiction. They were there for me, even if they weren't real. They were there when you weren't. They were more than you think they were. Or they're more than you think they are. So that's very telling of a culture where families are broken down, so many of them, where, church attendance is seen just as a place you go and sit for 1 hour on Sunday, so that gets boring. And, well, you can pop in a movie about great myth and legend and action and heroes anytime you want, continuously. So you feel bad, pop one in. You watch an action movie about superheroes, yeah, you start feeling great, right? And then there is feeding into your drama, your psychology, what's been going on with you, your theology and everything. It's there, and you can turn it on and off anytime you want.
Yeah, it's really weird watching things get programmed and trends specifically. And this is one I'm not going to talk about much on here because I'm wanting, as I told y'all before the show, to have eventually a debate with some, or not a debate with me, but kind of moderate a debate between someone who's Eastern Orthodox and someone who is Lutheran or perhaps Reformed. Is that you see things with a specific aesthetic that take off, and we all know the Vaporwave aesthetic. Heck, my dang avatar that I have right here is this Vaporwave type thing. But as Ken knows, that combination of Vaporwave, sort of more right-wing politics, and Eastern Orthodoxy have kind of gone together hand in hand. And now it's become its own sort of, I guess, kind of subculture, which, makes me think it was kind of engineered in some way. I don't know by whom. That would be for people with more knowledge than me. But it's really weird watching it all happen because it all does, obviously tie back into theology. And, the one thing I always tell people, if they're, I've got several atheist friends, is look into the trends related to theology that pop up, and you'll see the kind of dichotomy emerge where it's always some sort of paganism versus like a one strong unified Christianity. And I mean, it just makes you realize that anything like manipulating aesthetic for like a philosophical or theological effect on the populace, it's always super, super shady. I mean, as y'all know.
It's interesting you mentioned that because for a very long time now, I've called atheism neo-pagan, right? You would think that physicalism, reductionism, materialism, naturalism, you'd think that it wouldn't be that, but it ultimately becomes that, if nothing else, then because you look to nature as your creator. That's what brought you about.
Right.
And so even if you get into what some people call religions, what some people call philosophies or what have you, even such as aspects of Buddhism, you don't necessarily have to be any kind of theist to be spiritual. I mean, all you have to do is say, well, I worship the earth or nature or the universe, or even that you might even be able to have some kind of spirit guide, perhaps, if there's no real afterlife, but if a person has evolved enough to go beyond the physical. I know that strict materialists probably wouldn't go there, but who said that they're the orthodox atheists, right? There's a term I use called dogmatheism. And so, yeah, and in a lot of ways, atheism can become neo-pagan in that way. That's why you see it manifesting in that way.
Right, so evolution is basically a paganistic outlook, right? Random, nihilistic as well. So I think that those concepts kind of, I would assume the default to being an atheist is evolution, right?
Well, see, now, Zach and I have watched our fair share of horror movies. Now, tell me, Zachary, in how many horror movies have you heard disparaging remarks about Christianity?
Oh, a ton. I mean, you can literally fill a gigantic book with quotes.
I mean, if there's a Christian character in a movie, they'll either turn out to be insane or some kind of abuser in various forms, right?
Or really weak.
And then God will be blamed for it. Yeah, I mean, it's ubiquitous.
Yeah, and it always gets, pumped up in the media quite a bit. Like a good one is Fault in Our Stars. That one is seriously, like disgustingly anti-Christian. And for a while, I mean, it was pretty much like the teen girl thing where like every teen girl was obsessed with that book and with the movie. And of course, guys were too, because they would have to go to the theater with the girl. But, even my dang uncle was reading that book. And it's like, if something is seriously anti-Christian, it's going to be at the forefront of the populace.
I'm laughing because one time we went to the movies and there was a couple standing in front of us to buy their tickets, and they were going to go watch All the Pretty Horses. So I told my wife, if you want a guy to go watch a movie, you can't call it All the Pretty Horses. And the guy turned around and looked at me like, yeah, I know. And it turns out when they went to buy their ticket, it was sold out. So I told the young lady, well, gets credit, right? Because, he came. He brought you to it. It just happens that you can't go watch it.
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised. The thing we were talking about before we went live came up in the chat, the Dugan thing. Everyone else knows about this but me. Like, what is the deal with Dugan? The guy, Oswald Spengler, said, can Ammi request? Could you talk about, I'm assuming that's Alexander Dugan at some point. I'm assuming that's in reference to what I was talking about with the Vaporwave Eastern Orthodox type thing.
Can you talk about Alexander? But Alexander, sure, that'd be great. But I don't think that's what he means, right?
Oh, he wants you to talk about Alexander Dugan. I wish I could talk in great detail on the subject. I can't. I know of him, but I never read his books.
I apologize, but I'm on the same boat as Zachary, so I guess we're going to have to get up to date with what's hit, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I keep seeing it brought up so much. I'm eventually just going to have to bite the bullet and do my research.
My understanding is he was kind of like a leading light theoretician of the alt-right. He kind of Charlottesville torch-carrying right. So for one, his ideas, what are they saying here? Fascistic, non-Eurasianism. So I think that was what really attracted him. Somebody who's kind of in the mold of Julius Evola, it seems like.
Yeah, there's something really weird and specific with it, because I've got a lot of friends who run around in the alt-right, and a lot of things I respect with the alt-right, and some things I don't. But even they are pretty anti-Dugan. It's definitely something to do with like a Russian angle to it. Dugan is the Russian sociologist, Kraulian black magician masquerading as a Eurasianist Russian Orthodox.
Where'd you read that?
Go ahead. Zach, William's just wondering from where you're reading that.
Oh, that was what Oswald in the chat was saying.
Oh.
So yeah, I knew there was a connection to the Orthodox thing that's become very popular now. But
what's interesting, because our listener Oswald mentioned an article called "Why the Death of the RBG Made Me Join the Satanic Temple." Now, what's interesting about the Satanic Temple is that it's very much like Black Lives Matters, and I'm referring to the organization now, which is that they're just front groups, and they're admitted front groups. They don't actually care about what they appear to be. So the Satanic Temple, I don't know what they do in private, but they claim that they're more about political activism. And so, for instance, they will petition to be allowed to pray and before government-related meetings and put up their signs next to the nativity scenes during Christmas, not because that's really what they want, but because they want Christianity shut down. They're extremely open about that. It's just like Black Lives Matter. They obviously don't believe all Black Lives Matters, or they would be shutting down abortion clinics. They would be dealing with issues of black-on-black crime. They're not dealing with any of that because they're an admitted Marxist front group. And so it's like, let's say that there's a pack of dogs in the backyard and you need to get something from across the yard, but you're in their way. So you throw a piece of food, they all run to it, they're all fighting over it, and you just walk over, get what you need, come on back, and you're doing fine while they're over there tearing each other to shreds, right? That's exactly what's going on here.
Yeah, it's really annoying. It's even sort of been tearing, I'm not going to say tearing the Lutheran Church apart, but it's been annoying a lot of Lutherans where they're trying to do something like add systemic racism as a specific thing that has to be talked about in confessions and included in various creeds and dogmas. And most people are just like, no, go away. But they're so freaking like you said, they just want to position themselves in Christianity and kind of take it over. It's really annoying.
Unfortunately, a lot of less Orthodox, and I don't mean Greek Orthodox or Eastern Orthodox or Western Orthodox, just traditional churches are becoming less and less so the more societal they become, right? So they're basically going to let society dictate what they're going to be preaching the next Sunday.
Yeah, it's freaking horrible. I know specifically I don't have
dangerous hamster wheel.
Yeah, I don't have anything to worry about with Wales, but some of the more, I guess, liberal branches, they I would be, kind of scared sitting in the pews there because it's just a matter of time before it's taken over. It's insane and annoying. And I've looked up to a lot of, authority figures. Not that I've personally looked up to them, but I keep expecting them, if they're a big presence on the internet, to say something, and they will not go there, and it drives me crazy because the more they refuse to go there, the more these people get a foothold. Have you had to deal with anything like that, William, with, what is it? I think you were a Presbyterian, correct?
Yeah, raised Catholic, Presbyterian now.
I
really consider myself a Bible-believing Christian. I probably do okay in any church that kind of emphasizes that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I wouldn't say I'm super partisan,
Yeah. Yeah, I just didn't know if they were having the same trouble that the Lutherans are having with this specific topic.
I think all the churches are, don't you think? I mean, I think in the Presbyterian Church, there's still internecine or whatever that word is, like people wavering and super liberal and people who want to stay conservative and how that affects what's being preached.
There's kind of a fine line here because as the church, as the body of Christ, we do need to be aware of what's going on in culture, wherever our culture might be, and we need to prepare ourselves and each other on how to deal with issues. That's not the question, right? The question is, do we sacrifice our theology on the altar of whatever fallen, corrupt, secular and pagan culture du jour is telling us to do today?
Never.
Yeah, never.
It's a simple word, no. So, maybe that's the whole critique and criticism of the topic of our discussion and why it's just important to be aware and kind of hold your lamp up against all these falsities, even ones that are even more subtle, the undercurrents like nihilism or evolution or things like that. So I think I think that these just understanding what we do and like I like science fiction. So I still will watch the movies, but how much am I getting this imposition on? Like even you, like you talked the Alien Predator, there's a pretty strong, you could almost call it Lovecraftian element there, that there's an overpowering evil force that you can do nothing against.
Yeah, that's actually why I brought it up, because I was pretty soon going to be taking a deep dive into some of the Alien novels I've accumulated. They re-released a bunch of them as like an omnibus. So I'm going to dig deep into those. But one, Ken and you as well, to give me a little bit of a taste of what I'm going to be in for as far as the things I'm going to be picking out in this universe. Because I've seen most of the movies, but I've never really picked up on anything as bad in these. Which, I mean, you could argue that anything science fiction is going to be inherently set in a sort of atheistic universe. It's just how far they're willing to beat you over the head with that type of philosophy, or if they're just going to tell a cool story with an alien or something.
Right.
How intense is it in this franchise?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe Ken can talk more about that. But if you look at the Prometheus movie, where there's a creation myth, where the guy like dies and seeds the ocean with his DNA or whatever. Yeah. And, so you're definitely getting something that, if you're a Christian, is a false view of the cosmology.
Yeah, I know a lot of hardcore Alien fans try to just forget that movie exists and not include it as canon.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, you talk about it, Ken. What are your thoughts about that?
That's actually funny, because when I wrote this book, I included the crossover movies, right? The Alien and Predator crossover movies. And someone told me, well, those aren't canon. I was thinking, I don't care. Who cares? It's not my religion. Sorry to disappoint you. But part of what we're dealing with, I'll kind of circle around to what you asked. Part of what we're dealing with is theological anthropology, if I may refer to it as such, because what we're looking at is that we're fallen beings and we have a natural propensity to rebel against God. And so when a youngster is going through that period in their life where they're very emotional, very dramatic, and very rebellious, and they're watching movie after movie after movie after movie that not only vaguely is anti-Christian or anti-biblical, anti-God, but blatantly, then it's just a case of, back up here. If everyone involved in this movie with the $1 million that are behind it is putting this message across to me, then I'm being verified, right? And also to keep in mind that it's a sensory overload, right? You watch these movies, especially if you go to a theater, again, the allegory of the cave, or on Horsley's View, the the MK Ultra experiment. Vivid imagery, right, with experts in cinematography and staging and lighting, and the sound and the music done, again, by experts. And the whole scheme is made to just kind of overwhelm your senses. That's why the movie theater is especially beneficial, because you're literally almost in a chamber, right? You're not moving that much. You don't have to walk around. You don't have to do anything but just stare, and everything's coming in. So I know that I've explained before where I tend to watch movies with two brains, right? One of them is just enjoying the show for what it is, because I want to take in what the movie's telling me. So I don't get bothered about stuff like the plot doesn't really make sense, or it's a sci-fi movie where a steam-powered engine gets a rocket to the moon. What do I care if that's not realistic? It's just a story. But then there's the other side of me, the dissecting, discerning, thinking the whole entire time. I'm watching and I'm thinking, what's the worldview? What's the message? What's the symbol? So I'm kind of doing both at the same time. And so one thing to keep in mind about alien theme is Well, I think, Zach, you probably saw it in my book, 50 Shades of Grey Aliens, which is talking about what does that even mean, alien? That's the first step, is what do you even mean by that term? But let's just say, okay, extraterrestrial of whatever sort. Often that has been a stand-in. So, for example, if you look at a lot of the early Buck Rogers comics, the aliens, quote unquote, are really Japanese. World War II era propaganda, straight up, that they're straight up Japanese. That's what they are. Whereas in many other movies, the alien might be more like a demonic figure, such as I'm trying to track down a quote right now. Yeah, here it is. The original writer of the script for Alien said that a more revealing title would be The Haunted Spaceship. He said it's about a crew of astronauts who encounters a supernatural menace. Okay? Now, you would probably never watch the movie Alien and think that it's about that. You'd think it's about a biological entity that happens to be very hungry, apparently. And maybe they dropped that original idea for what you see portrayed in the screen. But then you think about, well, does it bleed over? Is it metaphor? You end up just not really knowing. So that's something important to think about. But one thing about... your cat again?
Sorry.
One thing about alien-related movies is that, yeah, they will, of course, tend to be sci-fi. And sci-fi is generally futuristic to whatever degree, which ultimately means transhuman or transalien. And transhumanism, as William very well knows, since we're working on a project on that, inevitably will combine high-tech, evolution, and occultism. It's like inevitable that those three themes will come up. Just like William mentioned 2001's The Space Odyssey. There you have evolution, unquestionably. You have high-tech, of course, right in your face. And then you have the occultism of this monolith appearing and causing changes, right? So it's inevitable that those are the three elements that you could keep in mind as you are watching or reading sci-fi, especially alien-related movies. They will definitely manifest in some form or another.
Interesting. Yeah, I've actually been reading a lot about the making of 2001. It's a pretty remarkable process, but if you read about both Clark and Kubrick, these guys were both in occult influence. They knew a lot, hanging out with interesting people. And Clark was staying at the Chelsea Hotel when he was writing it. So he was hanging around with just a William, just all kinds of crazy people. It was, what's the guy who wrote Naked Lunch? William Burroughs. So he's hanging out with William Burroughs and all these other characters at the time of the writing of 2001.
Yeah, the William Burroughs stuff I always find extremely annoying because, okay, for instance, we had on The Quiet Place a musician I've always looked up to, Bill Laswell, who came on, and he had worked a lot with William Burroughs, and he considers him some sort of prophet. He uses that word, and when I pressed him on him, he would just say, oh, it just means, he's got his finger on the pulse of what's happening. But, if you just do a little bit of a glance at William Burroughs' work, his philosophical outlook, everything is inherently occultic, even down to incorporating, all kinds of pagan symbology, et cetera, et cetera. And now this is one thing that, I think it's more of a thing artists have done later, but they will use, but it just shows that people with occult, thinkers are thinking of it this way. When William Burroughs killed his wife by accident by, other than shooting the apple off her head, he shot her. They view that as a sacrifice for his art. And it's a jump to, go there, but I don't know. It's crazy that all these people think in these really occult ways. Like they don't they don't hide it. They're just out in the open about it. Specifically, who's the dang comic book guy that we talked about one time, William? Was it Grant Morrison?
Alan Moore is one.
Yeah, Alan Moore.
They're both.
The guy who started X-Men too.
Yeah, they all like. The crazy thing is they'll all be upfront about this stuff. And when you bring this up to people, they don't want to hear about it. It's like, we're not making this up. This is the artists themselves talking about what they're doing. It kind of baffles me.
The X-Men symbol, the X in the circle, is right out of occultism. Crowley used that symbol at the top of his Seal Babylon. I mean, it's all over the place. And that guy, I forgot his name, who started the X-Men, he was hanging around in New York with Peter Levenda, because Levenda writes about him in a interesting missive. He's like, yeah, we were at the Magical Child together. And that guy was sleeping with his girlfriend or something. So these guys were all fairly well connected in that.
Yeah, Grant Morrison, I'm uncomfortable even bringing this up, but when one of his comic series wasn't doing very well, he encouraged his fans to have a wankathon. Okay, if you understand the Britishism, wankathon meaning manipulating your own genitalia, all right? And it was a form of a magical ritual. What he was having is having his fans engage in that sort of, pseudo-sexual act, so that the climactic release would energize the comic book and make it more popular. William knows exactly what I mean, although I'm trying to kind of subtly swim around all this stuff. It's a straight up sex magic ritual that he encouraged his fans to perform for his own benefit, for the sale of his comics.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Not surprised. But all these guys, Moore's heavy, says half of his time is writing comics, the other half is occultism.
Yeah.
So these guys are like, wizard level occultists, particularly Moore. And
it's so annoying that we've let them get like such a stranglehold on culture to where people care more about them and the things that they create than they do, actual theology. It just baffles my mind that we got to this place. And almost makes me wish, I grew up in a time that wasn't as full of media as this. I mean, growing up in a dang Puritan village may actually have been a better thing than growing up in a safe, secular world that just happens to be controlled by freaking Satanists. Right. But, that's why this year is so interesting, because it's like all of that manipulation is actually reaching ahead. And, of course, we don't know if it's actually ahead or if it's just another blip on the, just another series of events on the way to another big election. But 2020 seems to be like a definitive final year, like a final year as in we're transitioning from one system to another system. What do you think about that? Like, you think the new normal is literally going to be a new world order normal, or is that a little hyperbole?
Well, I think that the whole world's going to change after this virus, and definitely the election's very important. Because if Joe Biden wins, have you ever heard him talk about come to the light? He sounds like he's just reading out of a Masonic handbook when he has that speech. Have you heard his New World Order speech where he just keeps saying New World Order all the time? Because,
no, I'm not familiar with that one.
No, it's amazing. No, he's a long-term corrupt politician, and they're going to put the same criminals back in the office if he wins. So it'll be a horrific event for the country if he wins, I think. So I think for me, it's a very, very, very important election, and not just outside what's happened in 2020, but do you want to let it go? I mean, wow. The sun is making money, millions of dollars all the time. It's incredible. No court case, no nothing.
Let me read you a quote from Alan Moore. He says, "I suppose when I was writing V for Vendetta, I would, in my secret heart of hearts, have thought, wouldn't it be great if these ideas actually made an impact? But when you start to see that idle fantasy intrude on the regular world, peculiar. It feels like a character I created 30 years ago has somehow escaped the realm of fiction.
It's true. It has escaped fiction, right? All those masks, all those, what's the guy's name?
Guy Fawkes.
Guy Fawkes mask, yeah. So
Yeah.
it did escape.
Yeah.
No question.
It's absolute weirdness. It really is weird watching, like, you spend years researching conspiracy type things, and you always say to yourself, oh, when they start doing the forced vaccinations, or if they start doing this, then people will rise up. So you're not always, you're never worried about it. You're consuming it as a type of thought-provoking and informative educational entertainment. That's the way I've always looked at it. But it's like now we're seeing it happening, and I don't know if people are going to stand up against the vaccine. Like I fully believe it's going to be mandatory, and just what happens after that, anyone can speculate, but it's not playing out like I thought it would. I was thinking there'd be a little bit more of a boogaloo aspect, but that's definitely not happening.
So what if it's not a mandatory vaccine? Okay, it's not. But then businesses and maybe even the place where you work says, okay, you can't come in here unless you verify you had your vaccine.
Yep. I mean, I think that's how it's going to
That bothers me.
Yeah.
Well, we live in an era when a presidential hopeful like Joe Biden has to do with a pop party. What is it, B or D or whatever?
Wait, what? You cut out for a second.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Coming in and out. You're modulating in and out.
Okay, how's that better?
Much
Yeah,
better.
it's perfect.
Presidential hopeful like Joe Biden having a big to-do with that pop star Cardi B or D or whatever it is. Right around the time she puts out one of the filthiest videos in terms of imagery and language, even in a time when we're supposed to be so concerned societally about the black culture in our country. She drops a filthy bomb on top of it, and everybody applauds it. I mean, it's like bizarro world. We're literally living in a time where if you think of the most ridiculous thing you could imagine, it'll be in the news tomorrow.
It's so true.
Yeah, the Cardi B stuff just gets on my nerves. And then, another figure I'm very, very, very skeptical of is Kanye West. Like, I'm glad for him leading people to Christianity, but there's something.
Yes.
Are you shaving?
What? Don't mind what I'm doing. You're yapping. Just leave me alone to do my thing. You keep talking about whatever you're talking about. Well, you never shaved before? Actually, you probably haven't. You probably don't need to shave, do you?
Sadly, I only have to shave my neck. I hate to admit that, but I cannot grow a beard.
Have you ever heard of Kanye West's connection to Alejandro Jodorowsky?
I have.
That's fascinating. I'd like to hear about it.
Yeah, well, he considers Jodorowsky like an influence. He considers him kind of an inspiration, and he took some of Jodorowsky's imagery and adapted it into his stage show. So there was, I think it was from either Holy Mountain. I think it was from Holy Mountain. He adopted some of that imagery of going up to the top of the mountain into his stage shows, and he's been seen with Jodorowsky. Like, there's pictures of them together. Jodorowsky didn't know who Kanye West was, but there's pictures of them together. It's pretty interesting. Jodorowsky, I wrote in Children of the Beast that he likes to drink blood. He's got all kinds of Crowley like books and material like that, and he's probably going to pop up again into the culture because he tried to make Frank Herbert's Dune, and it never materialized. But then Denis Villeneuve's is releasing, I think, in December. So they'll probably, I think they've already actually interviewed Jodorowsky, and he said, I won't like it. It'll probably be trash or something like that. So he's already kind of denigrating it.
Jodorowsky is the one who said that something happened with his movie and like funding ran out, and he did a thing where he willed himself to be able to get more money and like went in a room and kind of like meditated on it. And then when he went out of the room, like he ran into someone that surprisingly had the money he needed and just gave it to him. Is that the same one?
It might be. It sounds like something that would happen to him. But he's he was I think John Lennon was a fan and financed his second movie. And yeah, he's an interesting guy. There's kind of an infamous picture of him together with Dennis Hopper, Kenneth Anger, and Donald Campbell. They were all at some kind of art thing in the 60s. But all those guys are just incredible stuff, man. They're all into the occult.
Yeah, Dennis Hopper is one I never would have thought, but...
Yeah. I mean, he was rumored to be an OTO, like a member of the OTO in Pasadena. And there's definitely pictures of him with Jack Parsons' wife. Like they were in the same movie together called Night Tide. So.
We can't hear you, Ken.
I think it might be time to invest in a new mic.
You know what?
Well, you know what? If you put up if you put up like a GoFundMe for a new mic, I'll donate some money.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. No.
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Go on.
Well, I just tell you a funny mic story. Like I was using like a mic, and I was like, it was really old, but you couldn't tell that it was anything different than the standard make of a Microsoft neck mic. So I took mine and threw it away, and then my kid switched it out, so I got it back, not knowing it, and so I knew it was broken, and I kept using it like it was the new one, and I just finally figured out something was wrong, and then I just chucked it in the garbage and finally got smart. But it was really aggravating. I even remember who I was doing the interview with, and it just kept petering out during the interview. I had no idea what was going on. So when your mic gets on, it doesn't work. Put it in the garbage.
Okay, something is happening. I don't know what was happening there. It was I think an echo coming across on Ken's of William talking. I'm not really.
Okay, there.
There, that's perfect. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. You can hear me now, right?
Yes, very well.
Okay. So anyhow, I was saying that I did literally order a new mic like 2 days ago.
What brand did you get?
I don't recall, honestly. But I got just a mic. Anyhow, I didn't want to. There's a documentary called Jodorowsky's Dune.
Yes, yeah.
And that is a very, very interesting documentary to watch on a lot of levels.
Yes,
And
I totally agree. Yeah, well, he had all these people working for him who then turned into the Alien franchise. So it was what was the name of his set designer? I can't remember his name now. What's the artist's name? It's what's the artist who drew the original Alien?
I don't know.
Come on, guys! Can't believe his name is escaping. Geiger.
Geiger.
Yeah. So it was Geiger was in that, and apparently a lot of the production people went right into Alien, not just Geiger or Geiger or whatever they call him.
Yeah. Now, with Clint Eastwood, this is kind of off topic. Wasn't he rumored to be a Freemason?
I've heard that rumor. People have alleged that when he did that whole thing about Obama running for president, he did his speech, I think, during the McCain campaign, and he drew his hand across his throat. Like that was supposed to have a little occult, Masonic little messaging, to my understanding. Do you remember that?
Did you say Reagan?
No. So when McCain was running against Obama, there was I think it was either at the convention or one of the campaigns Clint Eastwood gave an address, and he said something derogatory towards Obama and drew his hand across his neck like it was a Masonic thing. So that was the rumor.
No, I don't remember that.
I gotta go at 6, so I've got 20 more minutes.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I don't know why I heard Reagan. I was just thinking about him because to me, he's an odd figure because when you get into the whole like government UFO thing, and if some of them believe that, the UFO phenomena is demonic and some of them believe it is extraterrestrial, he is apparently one of the ones who was at first had an extraterrestrial viewpoint, but when given the information, like just like J. Allen Hynek switched over to taking on the more I guess popular among these circles, demonic idea or explanation of UFOs. And it's extremely off topic, but that was just for some reason popped into my mind. Have you ever looked into Reagan at all?
Wasn't there a big kerfluffle about his wife having a psychic or something, or they had some psychic relationship? But that whole assassination was fake. Bush Sr. tried to off him right almost within the first year of his presidency, and had that literal mind-controlled assassin try to take a shot at him.
Yeah, I keep thinking that, I hope it doesn't happen, but they're aiming at Trump so hard right now. And to be honest, I've not made up my mind if I'm on board with Trump. I'm definitely on board with his rhetoric and with what his base believes. It's just, deciding whether it's legitimate or if he is just like a political pawn or something. But
I think that you can apply the standard as, he's known by his actions. What has he done? Has he tried to do his job? I don't think that his character is great. There's not a lot commendable, but if he's doing his job compared to what our other options are,
definitely.
That's it. So they're actually prosecuting people. They're investigating. No, there's not a lot of payoffs. You don't see a lot of corruption within his administration. So to say that he's a political pawn, I just find that very hard. He's not part of the Republican establishment at all. They all hated him. They didn't want him to win. They were campaigning against him all during 2016. And even for him to win the nomination was remarkable, considering what kind of people he was competing against. Bush dynasty, all kinds of experienced politicians. Trump is very he kind of knows the political winds very well. So I was glad he won. Against Hillary, somebody who's just a total nightmare monstrosity. So when you're in there and he's insulting these people, they literally did a soft coup. It wasn't a violent coup, but they were trying to get him out. And the entirety of the entirety of the impeachment was non-constitutional. There was not a constitutional standard by which the Constitution directs the Congress to kick somebody out of the presidency. They didn't even have a proper cause of action. So it's a total fraud. It's a joke. I'm surprised anybody on the left would even condone that wasteful amount of time that was used on that on the live. But the left's propaganda is superb. They are really expert in playing the system, playing the grand, organ or whatever it's called. But they're great because they make up a fake story, then they promote the fake story, bullhorn the fake story, then it gets out there as truth, and then the day after that they say, "Oh yeah, well that's not exactly what I said." They've done that like 300 times, and then the deranged mobocracy left goes apoplectic every time they believe their own party leaders' lies. It's incredible. It's a great dynamic, but when you see it over and over again, like these guys, it's like a dog in the ball trick. Like at a certain point, you guys got to figure out you're being played. So getting back to the Trump point, yeah. So getting back to Trump, I have to say that there's not. He's obviously a representation of his class. He has a huge, positivity rating within the Republican Party. So I think he's serving the wealthy interests, which is, probably part of what he wanted to do as himself, but is saying that he's bought out or anything. No, it's too much antagonism toward China, and a lot of actions that some other people who are a lot less bold wouldn't do, like blowing away that Iranian terror general or whatever. It was pretty incredible. So,
yeah. Can we hear you, Ken? Can you say something? Still not sure.
No, his mic is still going. So I'll just speak. Anyway, so yeah, Trump is. Yeah, he's definitely. I think he's a unique person. I don't believe his whole kind of. I like the populist rhetoric, whether that's really the truth. But bringing jobs back to the U.S. and firming up our base. I mean, this whole pandemic was a perfect example of the national weakness. We can't even make our own pharmaceuticals anymore.
It's so horrible. And it just shows you that, if something's seriously bad, I mean, obviously this is already seriously bad, but just any more of like a push, and I mean, we would be crippled as a country. It's scary to think about that, but
yeah, no, it's not a good situation. And the people who've been in power for decades are people who let that happen on both sides of the line, Republicans and Democrats, probably because the bribery thing that the Bidens are all involved in is probably de rigueur for almost all the political leaders. They're all taking weird, strange cash through the family. In the Clintons, I mean, it's not even funny, but like the brother suddenly owns a gold mine in Haiti and all this other stuff. So there, it's pretty incredible that the national security state in the U.S. and the legal law enforcement just lets us all slide, because there's prima facie evidence of blatant corruption and criminality, like off the charts. Like anybody could see it. You don't even have to be a lawyer. So, yeah.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to bring up, or actually two things. First off, I keep seeing this image in the cover of your book popping up a lot, and some kind of new show on Fox where they'll be talking about the West Memphis Three. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but that might be.
What symbol? The kind of witch symbol, the circles with the Theban alphabet?
No, just the cover, the mug shots.
Oh, so the mug shots are in a show on HBO, you're saying?
No, it's a Fox, and I always see that, the iconic mug shots pop up. I forgot what the name of it was, but I just wonder what kind of direction they're going to go down with this show. And what
do you remember the name of the show?
No, and it's really making me mad. It's
is it a true crime show?
Yeah, I believe it is a true crime show. It's either a true crime show or a mysteries type show, but pretty sure it's true crime.
Let's see if I can find it online. A lot of these guys have touched the West Memphis Three. They ignore certain stuff. They're Mark Furman dives into West Memphis Three in the Furman Diaries. Great.
That's it, Furman Diaries, yes.
So Mark Furman calls it flawed from the start. New DNA evidence supported the men's innocence, which was never seen by the public. So, yeah, Furman. I should call him and see if he wants to come on and talk to him.
That would be pretty awesome to watch. The other thing is, during this whole pandemic thing, have there been any Smiley Face killing related happenings, or is that all pretty much died down since
it's all pretty much died down since everything got locked down? It's all died down. I think that there's been a few cases as things kind of reopened, but not too many cases, thank God. So I think that's kind of one of the positive elements of this whole lockdown. But there's the work continues. Yeah, it's pretty. There's been some really incredible developments. Considering I did a show with Igor Sarsky about the Order of Nine Angles, so there's a lot of information there. And
I'll have to check that out. Not the last thing I watched, but I was able to catch that Oxygen show, the Smiley Face Killer I think it's like 6-episode miniseries. I was extremely pleased with that. I think it's maybe 2 years old now. Not sure.
I think they did a good job. They had the original investigators on there, Gannon and Gilbertson, They covered some of their original cases, and the newer case was Dakota James out of Pittsburgh that involved Cyril Wecht. So I think they did a good job. I think it was produced by Blumhouse, that do a lot of horror movies, if you know Blumhouse Productions. But they didn't get re-signed. I think they kind of made a mistake. I would say my chief gripe would be that they didn't show the breadth of it and the international scope of these events. And I think that impact is very important for the viewer to understand the enormity, that these aren't just 5 or 6 people who have, met their fate late at night. There's a list of hundreds and hundreds of people or men who fit this same MO. So, so I think that's a shortcoming. I tried to cover that in my documentaries, but even then, my documentaries, there's only so much work you can do before you do a 10-hour series. So,
your documentary is close to that. I think the first one was like 3 hours, and the second
3.5 hours of duration. I was a little too much overkill, but I think that at that time the challenge was really to convince people that the phenomenon was real, because they had been supposedly debunked, or somebody did a lame job of researching and came up with nothing, or they tried to figure out. Gilbertson and Gannon are holding the cards close to their chest. They have tons of information, but they're not sharing it with the public. But so that was really my intent when I made that first documentary, was really show the enormity of the phenomenon.
Yeah, I thought you did that good. I liked the overkill. I liked the whole 3-hour documentary thing. I would like to know what exactly else it is that they don't know, or that they won't reveal, because they always allude to it. And I just wonder what could be so intense that they can't release it to the public. And I'm thinking, does it fit some kind of geopolitical thing? Or, you can speculate it.
There's a lot of speculation, but I know that they have said publicly they found other symbols or symbology associated with this. So they have a broader kind of occult understanding of that. And that they have also done or had researchers do forays into the dark web and have found corroborating kind of information that would tie into the cases. I think they've said that publicly. I haven't seen any of that. So I think there's a lot more information. They probably have the lists. I know that there are amateur, armchair detectives looking into this of names you've never heard, who are keeping voluminous lists and following stuff because, I think it's just like a real mystery, and that people are really challenged by it. Like, why is this happening? Yeah. Are these victims of death? So there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of knowns as well. But I do think that Gannon and Gilbertson know a lot.
Yeah.
And people kind of come to them, like I know of families who have reached out to them when these things happened. So, so I know that they're kind of like go-to type people. Some people have asked me questions, or Jim Smith, but so I think they have a lot of information. I think that it's interesting that the Dakota James case brought in the involvement of the FBI and the Secret Service. So why is the Secret Service involved? Because the Secret Service only has kind of a limited breadth of things to do, international issues, I think counterfeit issues. So why are they sitting in on a case or meeting with the chief of police in Pittsburgh to talk about Dakota James? So some people have speculated some of these people are literally flying into the country to commit crimes and leave. And there is some things that have happened that would indicate that could be the case, because, like, for example, one victim, Joey LaBute in Columbus, Ohio, he went missing on the night of the Arnold Schwarzenegger Classic, which is like a bodybuilding competition. So somebody might have flown in there knowing they were going to commit a crime and leave. And I think that's very problematic. And you can read about some of these stories involving international crime and the internet and multi-jurisdictional criminality. There's a lot of stories. When you start looking into that, these guys know that they're crossing boundaries and crossing back over, knowingly changing jurisdictions. So it's pretty disturbing. It's very scary.
Yep. Well, looks like we are about 5 minutes from 6. So I guess we'll add some final words. I still don't think we're able to hear Ken.
He's there. He's with us in spirit. I can see him. He's gesturing. Could you do some mime for us? Can you hear us? I think so. There you go. Yeah. What do you have? Do you have anything you want to follow up with? I mean, I have a documentary on occult Hollywood. I did one 10 years ago. I have another one on Vimeo. I cover some famous directors. Jodorowsky's one of them. I cover Donald Cammell, Polanski, Oliver Stone. A lot of people don't know about his material. So there's and Kubrick as well. Which
and the next one?
No, and this one, the next one, I've got some pretty interesting things. I think you guys will be very interested in. But I definitely just have to sit down and do it. I've had some distractions and family things, so I definitely have enough material. I just have to go down and go through the grueling process of editing it. But I think you guys will be very pleased with it. But yeah, so some interesting things on the horizon. Definitely original material. Definitely original stuff that nobody's seen or really commented on. So yeah, so I did that documentary too. That's my book, but the documentary is out on that. You can see Joe Biden talking about the New World Order in that documentary too. I have that clip. I should just put it up as a public service on YouTube. But just to let people know, man, Joe Biden's he's not a good person. This is a very scurrilous lifetime politician. I just cannot believe that he was the choice of the Democrats.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, I just keep thinking that there's some kind of psyop thing related to him being obviously mentally like not there. Right. And they're doing it anyway. Like I know other people, like I know Alex Jones is like, well, that's how they work because you pay your dues and you get your thing.
Right. Well, I don't
think it's that simple. I think it's
look at it. Hillary Clinton was sick as a dog, and she went through that whole election. They picked her up on September 11th, 2016, and checked her into a modified ambulance, man. So they're just going to go through this again. I wouldn't be surprised if this guy will have doubles like she did, or they're going to pump him up on drugs. Some people have seen syringe marks on the back of his hand, so they're pumping something right into the vein that will go right to his head.
Yeah, that reminds me of Trump's tweet, and that was just amazing. I don't know if it was a tweet or like an interview where he said they're going to ask for a drug test before the debate or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy. It's so crazy. Trump is no saint. I mean, there's a picture of him with a whole bunch of cold medicine that no normal person would have. And it's got ephedrine and stuff like that. So I've seen his kid too, man. I mean, have you heard the stories about Hunter Biden? Oh my gosh.
I know some people try to say he's a Nephilim.
No, he's a mess. He's been in rehab like 6 times.
No,
the most recent is 2016, like fairly recent. Oh, well, Trump might be a Nephilim. I don't know.
I know one of Trump's Barron, I think the big tall one, everyone's going on, oh, he's got the Nephilim DNA. And of course that triggers me because I get annoyed with people talking about the Nephilim. But I'm looking forward to the debate.
I think the debate the next 39 days will be very interesting. That's for sure. And one thing to Trump's credit, that there's not a lot of extrajudicial killings that were very common under Bush and Obama, sadly. So, I haven't seen anybody get blown up like Michael Hastings in Hollywood or Seth Rich. So that's a very positive thing. Nobody will really talk about like it's fake, but there's not a lot of suspicious dead bodies around like there are under some of these other administrations.
Yep. Well,
there's actually tons of dead bodies. If you look into like all the stuff that went down in Hollywood, incredible stuff, man, happened under Obama, who I voted for, 2008.
Yep. Well, it's getting down to 6 o'clock there, and you said you had an out. Is there anything else left that you'd like to sell before we go?
Nothing to sell. Nothing. I mean, you can see stuff on my podcast, William Ramsey Investigates, YouTube channel. My books are available on my website, williamramseyinvestigates.com. I've got a bunch of articles there that I've written over the last decade. So if you're bored and want to look through some cheap, free material, you can do that. And buy my books.
I was going to say I'll shill some for Ken because he can't shill for himself.
Right, truefreethinker.com. You can buy his books there. You're doing a benefit to independent authors by purchasing their books directly from them. So my suggestion is go to www.truefreethinker, all one word, and buy some of Ken's excellent books, which I have read probably at least 5 and done interviews on. So you can see our interviews on YouTube. I think he also puts his up on his YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, eventually I'm going to want to do a show with him once I get around to finishing his Pop Researchers book, because we've talked about that topic quite a bit, but once I get more information, we'll talk about it more in greater detail. Then we can put that topic to rest, because it's invaded our minds and the minds of many others for too long. I'll also shill for him his appearance on the Kill Stream, which I was extremely pleased to see that, as I am somewhat...
That's pretty edgy, man. That's very edgy of you, Ken. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I'm partial to some of the edgy alt-right guys.
Can you hear me at all?
I'm happy with the Groypers.
Hey, man, that's yeah. I was on Killstream too. Very interesting, but had a good time. Enjoyed it. So I can say I've been like a producer for somebody who's like a socialist, quasi. I don't even want to say with Ed. So I've covered the full political spectrum by being on the alt-right Killstream. So definitely, it's definitely interesting.
Love me some Killstream. And I guess I'll show Indie Rock Cabin. And Sunday, we're doing another Quiet Place, as always, at 7 p.m. Eastern Central Time. And I'm trying to talk everyone involved in the Quiet Place into doing a live debate coverage / viewing party. Not sure if it's going to work out. 2 of the people involved are on. I just got to make the main guy get on board with it. So, Jeremy, if you're listening, we all want to do it. And it looks like you're. We can hear you again, Ken. Do you have any final words?
Now you can hear me?
Yeah.
So at the end of the show, I come back. Great.
That's right.
No, just it's been a pleasure, interesting as ever. And yeah, I think everything we've been talking about kind of came to a head when I was thinking about, we're talking about documentaries now, and how, yeah, if you look at most of the West Memphis 3 documentaries, it's kind of the same thing. They're pushing a worldview, right? They're propagandizing. Same thing. Same thing as a quote-unquote fiction movie, as a quote-unquote true documentary. By the way, I just checked my order. The microphone is coming in tomorrow.
Well, that's good. Then you can do many more shows.
Yeah.
By the way, the Kill Stream allowed me to just post my portion of the show. So I did that. I edited it down, and I removed some of the choice terminology, so it's easy on the ears. So I put that on my YouTube channel. It's a riot. I mean, poor guy, Ethan Ralph. I had him face palming almost instantly. It's a riot.
Oh, strange days, man. Gotta tell you. It's been great. You guys stay safe. Stay safe.
You likewise.
Maybe I'll see you in the detention camp in a year or so. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, you're in California, right?
The People's Republic is getting crazy.
I'm okay because I'm on the space station, so I don't have to worry about that.
You're lucky.
You're in California and you've been on the Kill Stream. That means they're going to round you up.
Oh, you believe it?
What you need to do, William, right now is say, my name is William Ramsey. I'm in sound mind. I have no intention of harming myself. I have a kill switch. I got, all this.
My name is William Ramsey. I'm of sound mind. I have no intent of killing myself. If I'm found in the bathroom with a bunch of pills, some in my body and on the floor, I did not do it. Thank you. Today's date is September 25th, 2020.
AD.
AD, right. Not CE, not Evie.
Thank
not
you.
Alice.
Yes, that's important, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a pet peeve of mine. Is the CE BCE stuff is ridiculous.
Yeah, well,
I'll
different
say
folks. Different folks.
Well,
Guys, it was a pleasure talking to you, man. You guys have
Likewise, as usual.
Yeah.
I will end it on that. Go buy Indie Rock Cabin from Amazon and give me some money.
Well, you said it's because you needed some shoes, remember? So I asked you, why don't I just send you some shoes? Get it over with.
I'm cool with that. Shoes is the end goal. I don't care about selling books. It's all about shoes.
Okay, I got these. How about these?
What size are
Those
they?
are stylish.
I wear a 12. Are they a 12?
Whoa. I don't even wear 12.
Those are big feet. How tall are you, Zach?
5'10".
So you're 5'10" and you have a
Wow.
12 shoe? Wow.
Yeah. It's probably
We're going to start calling you Zach Bigfoot McGaha.
Yeah, really. There, they found Bigfoot right there. Zach.
Okay.
Can you pull the basketball?
He can't grow enough hair to pull it off his.
Oh. Yeah.
Do I have your permission to rip this off of your YouTube channel and then post it on my podcast?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I'll give you guys credit. What should I say? Indie Rock Dinosaur channel? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, Indie Rock
Or Indie Rock Dinosaur.
Dinosaur.
But Zach didn't like that, so fine, whatever.
Yeah, Dinosaur just doesn't sound right. Hopefully, we'll be getting some good shows lined up in the future. If I can ever get the EO and Lutheran debate off the ground, I don't know if.
Well, how's this? Would you be willing to take the side of Lutheran, or why Lutheran, or to take that position? Because I could probably line somebody up to take an opposing position, Orthodox or something.
I'm a layman. I'll have to get some other more learned individual to fill in on that.
Well, it'll help work out your principles. You'll solidify and codify them by prepping for a debate.
Nah.
But yeah, okay, why don't we say that? If anyone has any ideas of who we could have on as a guest, run it by us. We may and we may not, but it'd be nice to know of people who might make for a potentially good guest. I certainly would love to debate the Nephilim issue with somebody. I would also like to
I
have
want
a
to see
discussion
that.
with atheists.
Yeah,
You want to see that?
get well on. He won't do it, but I want to get him
Atheists or,
I don't think
sci-fi people who talk about Nephilim as if they're, theological sci-fi or something. That'd be great.
on. The Skywatch people might be completely tired of me because I troll their Facebook. So maybe I'll make a deal with them that I'll shut up and they come on and one of them debates. So, some of them get on my nerves, but
which ones?
mainly just the main whoever runs the Skywatch social media.
Tom Horn?
Tom Horn. I mean, I like his stuff that's not Nephilim related.
Right.
When he's on about transhumanism, it's perfect.
Yes.
But then he'll literally say Bigfoot is a Nephilim, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? You're destroying your credibility and making it look like you've been bought out by whoever's wanting to pump this horrible theology into the zeitgeist. But
Oh man, I wish I could tell you guys my Skywatch story.
oh, you can. I'm going to go ahead and end this now. I want to hear. Good evening, gentlemen.
We're going behind the scenes, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you all. Thank you.
God bless.
God bless. Good night.
Bye.
Turn this off.